This is Brother Jack coming to you today from the heart of Dixie. And yes, there is trouble in the land. Today you don't want to miss this broadcast at all. I'm going to tell you when Jesus himself said that he would return to the earth. We're not talking about the time or the hour, the day of the hour. We're talking about when he's going to return. It's going to be quite a bit difference in what organizations teach or what you may believe. We're going to take the red letters of what Jesus said, and we're going to cover several different chapters of things today, Lord willing. And see, people don't understand that God didn't say that we wouldn't go through times of trouble, but the church will miss the wrath of God. And so that's what we're going to talk about today and prove it from the scriptures, that the church goes through times of trouble, but it does not go through the wrath of God. And we'll prove that beyond any shadow of any doubt, and you can take God's word for it. Now, the other thing we're going to do is if on time, I have a 2-hour CD on that we made at church, and that tells you how to prepare for these days ahead. Let me tell you, folks, you're going to need a lot more things than you think. Don't be like they were in the days of Noah, because in the days of Noah, they wouldn't listen. Just like today, they had a spirit of unbelief, just like today. So nobody's much, just very few people are receiving what God's saying. You would be dead, you and your whole family, within 3 to 4 days without any water. Well, why don't you put some plastic drums around your house now and catch up some water, and every time it rains, take the tops off and sort of replenish the water. Because if you don't, you're going to be dead in 3 or 4 days. I tell you a lot of ways of doing things. You don't want to miss this. In the days of Noah, they wouldn't listen. But listen, when the ark sailed off, everybody wanted on it. Nobody wanted on it until then. And that's what's going to happen today. Suddenly, great judgment is fixing to come upon America. I have information on that if you would like. But I'll send you both of these. If you ask for them, you can ask for like Matthew 24. We're going to do other things today. We're going to do most all of Matthew 24 and some other things. And you can also ask for how to prepare for the days ahead. We'll send you both. You send me anything that you want to. I don't have no price on it. Every penny that comes to me will go to send this gospel to somebody else, you see, to somebody else. I believe with all my heart that God called me to be a watchman on the wall and to come to you and to tell you today and to warn you of these things and to tell you how to prepare. And I believe with all my heart it is your place. Every one of you that hear my voice, it's your place to help me send this word to somebody else. There's a lot of people that are doing this. There are really not a lot, but a few that are warning you, like Brother Jim Baker, for example. He's got, and all those that help him, he's got the largest ministry on this subject matter, preparation in the entire world. But there's a lot of small watchmen on the wall, like myself. And I appreciate all those that help him. But the thing about it is, I have to do what God told me to do. And right now, I'm making radio broadcasts, and I want to start now with Matthew 24. Matthew 24:3. Now, everybody wants to go, and they do, Matthew 29, 30 through 31, and where Jesus said he's returned after the tribulation. It talks about this in most every verse in Matthew 24. We're going to start with verse 3. Remember, the church misses the wrath of God. It does not miss times of trouble. Jesus, his disciples, they came to him in verse 3, and they wanted to know, like we know, when are these things going to happen? So he tells them. So we go to verse 4 through 5, tells us not to let anyone mislead us. The only way we can do this is study the Word for yourself. You'll need these CDs. You need to study the Word, and you'll know what's going on. See, the Lord said that they would be false Christs and prophets showing false signs, wonders, and many people would be deceived. Okay, just for an example, quick example, I made 2 trips to Haiti. One, my interpreter said his neighbor died. He said he saw him on the street like 1 or 2 years later. Well, how did that happen? Well, one of the witch doctors there had evidently slipped him something in his food or drink that's made out of a certain fish they have in that area, and it slows your heart rate down real low, and they think you did. So they buried him, and then a witch doctor went there that night and dug him up, covered up the grave, and so he's supposed to be dead. And then they drug him and keep him as a zombie until they die, unless they can get away from that. So these things happen that you'll think, well, this is God, but you better be a Christian. You better ask God for some wisdom and knowledge and discernment, and so you'll know the right from the wrong. The Lord said that, not to be deceived by anyone. Like I said, you got to study for yourself. Verse 6 and 7 says there will be wars and rumors of wars, and nations will rise against nation, and like many places today. And there'll be famine and earthquakes in many places, says the Lord. But he says not to be frightened. For these things would happen, you see. But see, Lord hadn't returned yet. He's just saying these things are going to happen. Verse 7, it says that the Greek translation does not say nations will rise against nations, but it says people will fight against others. Well, that's happening everywhere in the world today. We don't have time to go into that. Verse 8, Jesus said, all these things are merely the beginning of birth pains. You see, just the beginning, so the church is still here. Then, verse 9, then the tribulation will begin or start, and people will be killed, and they will be hated one another of all nations because of the name of Jesus. See, so if you're going to be hated, the church is going to be hated, they got to be here. They can't be gone, so they're still here. Verse 10 says that many people will fall away from their faith in Jesus and betray and hate one another. But see, the church is still here. There are people that are falling away. Verse 11, many false prophets will arise and will mislead many. You see, many people be misled. That's still here, but the church is still here. Lawlessness will increase, and most people that love Jesus, they said that a lot of them will grow cold. Well, they got to be still here to do that. The word lawlessness could mean complete disorder. And that's where we're headed today. There's a lot of disorder in the land. Verse 13, Jesus said, the one who endures to the end will be saved. So the church is still here. People are still here enduring. Now verse 14 says this gospel will be preached to all nations on the earth before Jesus returns as a testimony to them. Now, it did not say to every person, but to every nation. There's a lot of nations that are antichrist, especially all the Mid-Eastern Muslim nations and others I won't mention. But when you're against Jesus, you can't broadcast it in their country. So, but many people know about it. Verse 15 says, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of Daniel the prophet, which is the Antichrist, this hasn't happened yet, see. We haven't seen the Antichrist yet appear, so the church is still here. Now, let's just go on to the next verse here. He said that the Antichrist would go ahead and that he would speak against God and word. Let's go to Daniel 7:25. It says he, speaking of the Antichrist, will speak against God and wear down the saints of the Most High One. Now, how in the world can the church be gone if the Antichrist is going to have power over them? Daniel 7:25 says, he, the Antichrist, speaking of the Antichrist, will speak against God and wear down the patience of the saints of the Most High One of God, and he will try to make alternations or try to change the times and laws. So that hasn't happened yet. He hasn't appeared. He's on the scene. He may or may not know who he is, but he's alive and well at this time. But the church is still here. God hadn't taken it out. But the Lord is going to tell in just a few minutes if you'll just stay tuned. 2 Thessalonians 2, 1 through 4, tells us plainly that the Antichrist will first appear before the return of Jesus. Now, I know you may not believe that, but just read it for yourself. God said it, and I believe it. Matthew 24, 16 through 20, plainly tells us that trouble is on its way. And anybody that's got any sense at all knows that there is trouble in the land. It's not only on the way, it's arriving as we speak this day. Verse 21 says that there is, will there be no greater tribulation, such as ever been or will occur since the beginning of time, or ever will be, you see. Now this means just what it says, that the greatest time of trouble in the world we've ever known is going to soon appear. It hasn't got here yet, but the church is still here. Verse 22, unless those days were shortened, no life would be saved. But for the sake or benefit of the elect, the church, these days will be cut short. Okay, so the church is still here, you see. We're still here because God hadn't cut that time short yet. He hasn't returned. Jesus said that the church, in other words, hadn't been taken away yet. And now the word caught up means now or up to this point, see. So the church is still here. Go to verse 23 and verse 26. We're still in Matthew 24. Tells us that the people will be saying that Jesus is here or there, but don't believe them because it's a lie, and we'll get to that in a minute. Verse 24 tells us that there will be false Christs. Now the Greek says false messiahs with false or lying wonders and false prophets. Some of you out there know about a man. His name is Father Divine. Now, he was a black man, and a lot of his members were white. He had a lot of doctors and lawyers and people, and they thought he was God. They were deceived because they didn't study the Word, and they didn't know. He got out and done dumb stuff like there would be a highway that might go 2,000 miles across America. He'd go out there and lay his hands on or prophesy and say, well, false prophecy, that there are going to be over 300 people killed on it. Well, for the past 10 years, there have been a lot more than that killed on the highway. That's not a prophecy, that's statistics, and that's lying signs and miracles and wonders. So you have to have the Spirit of the Lord. You got it. Are you just going to be deceived? So you need to be a Christian. We're going to talk about that again in a minute. Jesus said in verse 25, he said, I've told you. He said, I've told you in advance. So you're being told now. God told us in advance. Verse 27 tells us that when Jesus returns for the church, it will be as fast as the lightning coming from the east to the west. So, see, that tells us that, if they say he's in a secret place, don't believe it. It's what I tell you. It was a lie. Jesus is coming from the east to the west it'll just be that quick. Verse 28 tells us that one day that there will be a great slaughter of mankind on the earth. Let's get this one, write it down if you're nothing else. Verse 29 through 31 of Matthew. Jesus said immediately, now that immediately being next, that means next, or after the tribulation, he said, the sun would be dark and the moon will not give its light. That hasn't happened yet. This hasn't happened yet. And the stars will fall from heaven in the sky, and the powers of heaven will be shaken. And Jesus hadn't got back yet. Verse 30. This is red letter, folks. This is what Jesus is saying. In verse 30, Jesus said, at that time, he would or will appear in the skies, then all the tribes of the earth would mourn. So Jesus is plainly saying right there that when he returns, it will be after the times of trouble. And said they will see the Son of Man, that's Yeshua, coming on the clouds in the sky with power and great glory. Jesus said in verse 31, he said, now we're getting at the time we're going to find out that we miss the wrath, but we don't miss times of trouble. Verse 21, Jesus sends forth his angels and receives the church at that time. So then the world isn't yet, see, but there will be a sound of a great trumpet that will sound. And the church, they're not going to be no secret catching away. We're going to hear that great sound of that great trumpet. Now, Revelations 14 through 16 says the same thing as Matthew 24:31. That Jesus returns on a cloud, perhaps the same cloud they ascend to heaven on. He'll have a golden crown, and on his head a sharp sickle, and his hand he will reap the harvest of the earth. Now is when the wrath of God is poured out. You will find this immediately after the church is taken up. Immediately after. Now, the wrath of God is now poured out beyond measure. Go to Revelations 14 through 19 through 20. It tells you the wrath of God has come. Revelations 15:1. Revelations 15:5 through 8. And all of Revelation 16. Well, folks, that is every bit. That tells you that the wrath is not poured out until the church is taken up. Acts 2:19 through 21. God said there would be big trouble on the earth before he returned. That's what we're talking about now. Matthew 25:1 through 13. It talks about the 10 virgins. Now, these 10 virgins were, all of them went to church, folks, but 5 of them were saved and 5 of them wasn't. Now, am I saying that half the church is lost? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying what Jesus said, that half of them that went to church didn't know him, because said they was going to come to him and said that, we've done all these things in your name and all that. And he said, I never knew you. All the people here, and hearing my voice and around the world, get this. You're only one single heartbeat away from heaven or hell. Let me tell you this quickly. I don't have time. I got a message on heaven and hell. I don't have time to get into it today, but I will tell you this for an absolute fact, that when you enter into heaven, the Lord God will never hear your voice again. The presence of God, the Holy Spirit, will never be there. You will only be able to cry out in pain to hear your voice, and you'll be able to hear the voice of those that are crying out around you. Now, that does not sound like a place I'd want to spend eternity. See, God will never hear you again. Once you're sealed in hell, it's forever. But listen, if I was lost, I'd pull over right now. I'd get somewhere, and I would say, Lord, forgive me. And I'd really mean it. I don't say, God, I don't want to go to hell. I want to go to heaven, because listen, in heaven there's one eternal day, and I'm telling you what, it's the best day. It'll be one eternal best day ever. And everybody there in heaven, regardless of who they are or where they come from, they'll be your very best friend. So those of you that are saved here, know you're on the way to heaven, your best friends, you're going to be friends forever, so you might as well go ahead and be best friends now. Make it to heaven. Don't go to hell. Please remember, people go around doing what they want to do, just doing the things they want to do, and they think, well, that's okay, but what second is your heart going to stop? You don't know. There's been people that shot, innocent people. A lot of things happen. Can't get into all that, but you don't know when your next second's coming from. But then you'll face God. You'll face God. So will you be saved and make it to heaven? I hope so. I'll show you this on Matthew 24. There's going to be some other scriptures for us to get to right now, God willing. So what I'm saying to you is that also we're going to send you better part of 2 hours, I think. It was 2 hours. We had to cut it back a little for radio. But it will tell you how to prepare. You just don't know. Like I said at the beginning of the broadcast, if you don't have water in 3 or 4 days, you're dead. You may drink out of a puddle. It may take you a week or two to die. But who wants to go that way? God has sending people. He sent Noah to tell the people, and they said, well, we don't care. We're doing what we want to do, just like today. Most people have the spirit of unbelief. Nobody wants to get ready. But listen, when the boat sailed off, when Noah sailed out, everybody wanted on the ark. Nobody could get on it. Today is going to be a time that a great tragedy will come in, and the food and stuff. It's happening in other places. Just because it happened here, you don't believe it. But I'm going to tell you, beans have gone to other countries for a little can of beans for $80. Let me tell you, when something happens And I've got a tape on that if anybody wants it, about things that would happen now in the near future. Now, what would happen is that one major thing could happen like the New Madrid Fault. And in just a few seconds or even minutes, our nation's divided. And let me tell you, food, if you got $500, it'll take $2,500. You go buy $500 worth of things now that would cost you $2,500 and 5, 10 minutes or an hour or two after something major happened. Don't be stupid. Get ready. Order this today, and this money that I've got that you send me, 100% of it goes to the ministry. It'll go. Listen, I have come to tell you the truth, and I believe it's your place to get a hold of this information, and the money that you send me, we can send it to somebody else. I can't do it without you. My wife and I took the Lord's money and come to you today. We don't have enough money to go anyplace else. You better get a hold of this message and what to do in times of trouble, and I'll get that right off to you, and we can get this message to somebody else. Somebody sends me something, this says for you and your family, and of course we need things, but a lot more than 10% of that goes to the Lord. Like I said, we're not rich. We're just a one-car family. So if anybody's got a pickup truck or a car or something they don't need, well, let us know. We sure put it to use. Let's get some other scriptures now right quick, and I'll come back and give you my address. My address is Jack Keeler, Keeler. That's Keeler. P.O. Box 28. That's P.O. Box 28, Boaz, B-O-A-Z, Alabama. Now the zip is 35957. That's Jack Keeler, Keeler, P.O. Box 28, Boaz, B-O-A-Z, Alabama, 35957. Now we're going to go on and get some other scriptures here. We're going to talk about Revelation 7:3. Tell you what it actually says. The angel says not to hurt anything on the earth until his servants on earth be sealed, so that they will be protected. Now this is talking about the 12 tribes of Israel. Revelations, but they're still here. The church hadn't gone. God's going to seal them. All right, Revelations 9:3-4. God commanded the locust not to touch his people who have the seal of God, on those who have not the seal. So therefore, there's people on the earth that have the seal of God, and they hadn't left that yet because they got the seal of God, and God said the locusts couldn't hurt them, only the ones that didn't have the seal of God. Revelation 13:7 says it was given unto the Antichrist to make war with the saints and overcome them. Tell me, folks, how in this world can the Antichrist have power over the saints if you're in heaven? Let me read that again. Revelation 13:7 said it was given to the Antichrist to make war with the saints and overcome them, so the church is still here. Revelations 24 says John saw the souls of them that were beheaded because they worshiped not the Antichrist, neither received his mark on his forehead. Well, again, if the church is going, how the saints going to get killed? They getting their heads cut off today. I dare you to go over and tell those people they're not going through something. Those people, God said, will be in heaven before the church is taken up, and because they're saying now, well, where are you at, God? Why don't you go and get the church? He said, and tell your fellow brothers, said there's going to be more that's going to be killed. So we're living in that time right now. Second Thessalonians 2:1-5 says that Jesus is coming back as he said he would. In verse 3, he says he will not return until the man of sin, being the Antichrist, is first revealed. Well, I don't care what your church believes. God said that Jesus is not coming back until the man of sin is being revealed. Read it, 2 Thessalonians 2:1-5. Daniel 7:25 tells us that the Antichrist will wear down or wear out the saints of God. Now, if the saints are gone, how in this world can they be here? Daniel 7:25 says the Antichrist will wear down or wear out, the patience of the saints of God. So the church has to be here because Antichrist is going to have power over some of them. But God said, be of good cheer. He who makes it, endures to the end, he will be saved. We'll get into more of that in a minute, Lord willing. Daniel 7:21. The same horn, which short is Antichrist, made war with the saints, made and prevailed against them. How in this world, again, the saints be gone if the Antichrist, Revelation 7:21, has power over them? But be of good cheer, because Jesus said that in the end time that that the church would win. We're going to be winners, and the Antichrist is going to be the loser. But so verse 22, it says that God says that we win. Let me see here. I believe that's probably about all the scriptures I got today to go on that. We've covered a great deal, and I want to ask you again to remember that only way that I can get this broadcast to another congregation is for you to send for this today. You couldn't get all these scriptures I've given you, and you need to order this. And because I've done what I need to do, God told me to be a watchman on the wall and come to you. I believe with all my heart it's your place now to send the gospel to another people in the United States. If you personally don't write for this, then somebody else will not hear it. So I've done what God told me to do. And the rest is going to be left up to you. You'll stand in judgment for things that you do. I will stand in judgment for things that I do. Right for this about the how to prepare for the days ahead. I told you about the water and different things. You need to know. You need to know to how to survive. Let me tell you one more time my address in case you're writing a check. It's Jack Keeler, Keeler, P.O. Box 28, Boaz, Alabama. 35957. That's Jack Keeler, Keeler, P.O. Box 28, Boaz, B-O-A-Z, Alabama, 35957. Look me up, folks, when you get to heaven. I plan on being there, God willing, and when you get there, just ask for Brother Jack. They'll know the right Brother Jack to send you to. And so we're looking forward to spending eternity with Jesus, where there's one eternal day, and we get to be with Jesus. Ain't that great, folks? We love you. Looking forward to see you there. Until then, this is Brother Jack, and we're gone, and God bless.